All right, folks, it's another edition of Mullings Music and the Memories, the 4 o'clock show on IBM TV. Look forward to another great conversation. Just had some amazing guests on the radio show, but right now we have another great show with some more amazing guests, including a young lady that is working on trying to provide positive messages to the world, and we know that we definitely need those. And then I've got a great artist that I had the pleasure of meeting through an event that was one of those tech talks that was going on out of, I believe, the Global Summit or Ghana or one of those kind of type deal. And everything's the pleasure of meeting Marco Rudy that way, and looking forward to having a conversation with him along with Trey Barefoot. And I do know a number of folks are paying attention to what's going on around the world, whether that's us dealing with the pandemic, whether that's dealing with the various other things that are impacting our society. A lot of people are paying attention to the fact that right now there is a $600 stimulus apparently on the way in the United States. So, and there's still talk of that even going up to 2,000. I know a lot of folks could definitely use that because these are some definitely struggling towns, and a lot of folks are very much engaged in to find ways to survive as we face a lot of different crises. As my friend Srinivasan puts it, we are facing several crises in our world right now. There's, of course, the crisis of health, there's the crisis of economics, there's a crisis around race relations, and a number of other crises that are going on in the world. So sometimes people are paying attention to that. They're also paying attention to the fact that sports is out there now again. And I know that the NFL is looking at towards having a NFL season, but that doesn't mean that the pandemic isn't impacting sports. Also, because I know that here in North Carolina, the Duke women's basketball team has called off their entire season. So they have said they're not going to have a season for this year, and they called off their season because of things that were going on as far as the pandemic. But there are a number of sports teams that are trying to have sports in empty arenas and all of that. So a lot of people are paying attention to a number of things around the world. So the first person I'm going to bring in is none other than Dawna. And Dawna has been doing a lot of conversation around the world issues and around us trying to have a very positive life and a positive development in our life and some of the healings that we need to do in our world and all of that. So when I first heard about Dawna, I was like, Dawna is doing some really good work in the world. I have a friend of mine, Zach Robertson, who oftentimes talks about light workers and the fact that there needs to be more light workers in the world. He actually considers me to be one of those light workers as well. So these are people that actually try to put positivity out there, and that is something that I try to do here on this platform on IBM TV and on a number of other things that I am engaged in. So Dawna, if you would share a little bit about your life, your message, and what you are doing, because as I was reading about your profile on LinkedIn and was talking to you, I was like, she is doing some very positive work, and we need more of this in this world, particularly at this time.
Hi, I'm Dawna. I'm actually from a place called Big Fork, Montana. It's a little tiny town, but I do have an international practice with what I do. And it's not just putting positivity out in the world and having a positive mindset, but it's working on a subconscious level so we can align with who you are, with, who you want to be, and to take away the lower vibrations of the world, the angers, the frustrations, the depressions, the anxiety, and shift each person to a life of having that love, that peace, that prosperity. And so after 11 years, my clients usually want better health, increased wealth, or enhanced relationships. And what they really ask for is happiness, prosperity, and love. I wasn't any different. And so throughout my life, throughout the course, I've put together ways of shifting and changing the subconscious so you can just go on about your life and have that happiness automatically for you.
Wow. Because I agree that too often, particularly with everything that's going on in the world, we concentrate too much on the negative. Actually, on the other show I was doing, one of our guests was talking about that she wished that more people would get out there and enjoy some of the things of life, whether that's enjoying nature, whether that's enjoying getting out there and exercise and doing a number of other things. But I was wondering, is that kind of your attitude as well, that we need to, yes, pay attention to what's going on in the world, pay attention to the concerns that we have, but at the same time, try to find ways to have a more positive outlook?
Right, absolutely, because happiness is on the inside of you. And if we're constantly looking outside of us, we're not turning that focus of what truly allows us to be happy. For some people, that might be connecting with nature, it might be yoga, it might be meditation. For other people, they love the inner city and the hustle and the bustle of all of that. And you got to find what's internal for you, for your own happiness, and how to exuberate that from the inside out. So yes, pay attention, but it's really about where you focus. And if we're focused on the negative of things, then that's what you're going to focus on, and that's what you're going to create internally for you. But if you're focusing on the things that bring you happiness, that bring you joy, you're going to be focusing on that and bringing that to you. So I know 2020 was a crazy year for a lot of people, and myself included, because I'm used to traveling, I'm used to speaking, I'm used to teaching, and all at once we're home. We don't get to go anywhere for a period of time. And I had to really look at that, and I could have gotten sucked into, here's all the downside of it, but rather I refocused it, decided I was going to, do the things that would allow me to be happy. So I finished writing a book that called Financially Fit, that is being released February 1st of 2021. Other good things, my children are all well, they're all healthy, they're excelling in online school. My son just got engaged. I mean, just all kinds of amazing things if we focused our attention on the good, positive things.
How important do you think it is to be financially fit, particularly when we're going through so many people being concerned about just having day-to-day living? I know, like I said earlier in the beginning of the show, a number of people have been thinking about the stimulus money that is supposedly coming down at some point or another. Some people were expecting it today, but then there was whole talk as to whether it would get signed, not get signed. It gets signed over the weekend, but now people are thinking it might be a week or two before you actually get those checks. But then sometimes people don't even know how to handle the money when they get it, because I even know the last stimulus check, a lot of times that money vanished very quickly if you got that money. So like I said, how important do you think, as we're fighting the pandemic, as we're fighting around race relations and around a number of other things, is that aspect of financial fitness?
Right. It's incredibly important, because I'm going to take it a step further. Most of the time when we think financially fit, we think of like the Susie Ormans of the world and the Dave Ramsey's, here's how to get out of debt, here's how to invest, here's how to budget, here's how to save. And I have a whole different perspective on what it means to be financially fit. And that's what the scope of this book is about. I was originally a financial advisor and a managing principal for an investment firm for about 10 or 11 years. And with that, I realized that money was outside of us, and there was things within that context we could not control. We could not control 9/11 and the stock market closing down for a week. We could not control mutual fund managers and their stock picks that they're putting in the mutual fund. We couldn't even control Wall Street. And yet we're trying to put together a portfolio based on the client's income and their goals and what they want to achieve. So from there, I said, I traded my health for this job. My relationship ended. I became financially devastated. And then I moved to an ashram, which was a spiritual living community, to uncover and learn a different pathway through meditation, through physics, through brainwave patterns. And now, 11 years later, with my client practice, I'm put together the book. And so this book is really financially fit. It's about living the secrets to an abundant and prosperous life. So it's all of the subconscious things that we're unaware of around money for you to come into an alignment with. So it's like all the stuff I wish I knew before I was a financial advisor. And then from this book, go follow your favorite financial guru or your favorites in that industry to put together the roadmap for you to follow. But we're only consciously aware of our thoughts about 10% of the time. The other 90% is in that subconscious. So when clients were saying to me, I want to know that I'm worthy. I want to feel appreciated. I want to know that I'm valued. I wanted to know that I was safe and secure as a child. Those are the same words we use to describe our money supply. What is your net worth? What is your portfolio value? How much did your assets appreciate? Is this a safe and secure investment? And so it's a vibrational universe based on your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions that you apply to the words. And the universe will read and see and feel that energy and return it to you. So there's a direct correlation with how you feel about money to how you feel about yourself. And because the words are the same words used in a different context, it's always going to return back to you how you feel. So the importance is really great, because if you are in alignment with yourself, with who you are, your essence on that subconscious level, your outward world will reflect that, and the abundance and the money and the prosperity will magnetically attract to you because of how you feel, because it's in that positive mindset, in that subconscious, that hidden part, that 90% we're not aware of all the time.
Yeah, because you actually brought up an interesting point that I was just thinking about and everything, because too often people almost look at the things as being diametrically opposed, but in your philosophy, it sounds like they're actually more closely related, because I know a lot of people will try to put it in the context of that old saying that I know some leftists use, which is that whole concept of money being the root of evil and things of that nature. But then you're also talking about like a lot of things that those same people will talk about in the sense of trying to be connected to their groundiness and their spirituality and things of that nature. So it sounds like you found a very nice medium ground where you don't have to have a negative aspect about money, but you will also be very grounded in trying to like be connected to your spirituality.
Absolutely. And money can be very spiritual and can be used as a spiritual tool. But we are electromagnetic beings. That's what science says. We have energy that runs up and down our body. We're a soul, a spirit, and a physical body. And so because we're primarily energy based, money is our outside representation of energy or energy exchange. And that's what money is. It's a type of energy exchange. What has happened over the years is we've used that outward expression to replace who we are as a divine essence and a divine being. And so for every expenditure we have, we feel like we're going farther and farther into debt. It's like an expenditure of your own personal energy supply, which is plentiful. And every time you receive money, we feel happy and elevated because we feel full. Well, if you were to take away the outward representation of money, where are you left? So what I'm saying is when you have that good, strong sense of self on that spiritual side, on the inside with who you are as an energy being, it affects your money supply and you can attract more because you're bringing that energy to you instead of pushing it away.
Now, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to bring in some of my other guests, and I know that you're bringing up so many thoughts that are crossing my mind about different things that I've heard and different things that I've learned. So I'm always glad to get new perspectives and new things along that line. But I know that one of the things that people sometimes get frustrated by I would say religion, by spirituality, and particularly organized religion, is what they call prosperity ministry, which is the kind of concept of giving the money to the organizations. But it sounds to me like you're actually encouraging people to actually earn the money for themselves in a more positive way and not necessarily give it to those organizations that oftentimes will then kind of misappropriate it or do it in other ways. That's why prosperity religion has that negative aspect in the way that it is perceived. But it sounds like you're actually saying that we need to be more engaging with the money on a personal level, not necessarily in an organizational level.
Right. Very much on a personal level. And then once you have that, it's your choice to how you choose to expend it, to use it, because money is designed to be fluid. We have inflows and outflows. So I know there's people that hold on to it, and then there's the people that just go out and spend it. It's really about having a balance between the two and knowing, but the point is not to have money replace who you are spiritually. And in order to attract, you do have to be in those higher emotions, those higher vibrations of the happiness, the joy, because that is what is going to allow that to come to you based on how you feel.
That makes a lot of sense. And I definitely want to bring in a couple of my other guests as well, but I definitely am going to continue conversating with you because you have so many thoughts and so many great, powerful things that I know that folks will be interested in learning about. But I think I'll first bring in Marco, and Marco is an artist and all of that. So I want to bring Marco into the conversation so that he can share a little bit about what he's doing in the art world. And then I'm going to try to get Trey, if he comes back in, to the conversation as well. But Marco, if you could share a little bit about what you're doing artistically, because like I said, I did meet you through one of those summits. One of the things that happens in this modern day of the pandemic is that we all hear about new summits and new things going on. So there was the Ghana summit, there was the global summit, there were a number of other summits that folks are finding ways to engage the community and to learn more about different things that they might be wanting to learn about. And that's how I found you, Marco Rudy, was you were actually a speaker at one of those conferences and things along that line. So I'd love to hear more about your artwork and some of the things that you're hearing as to how you're even surviving during this pandemic and how you're even engaging in the art world. And it also sounds like you're trying to kind of change the dichotomy of what we think of as our superheroes. We do know that Black Panther definitely got more Black superheroes out there, but I think that there's going to be an even greater outburst of different minority superheroes, different superheroes of different ethnicities, different orientations, and a number of other things. And it sounds like that's part of what you were trying to do with your artwork. So I'd love to hear more about it.
Hi, that's one too many subjects into one question. In the conference that you saw me speaking, I was talking about because the conference was specific to African-born creators. I was born in Mozambique and I moved to Canada. It's been 11 years that I've close to 10 years that I've lived here now. And specific to the conference, what I was talking about, it was how people are raising money, I think, to actually fund their enterprises. And I was discussing the fact that a lot of creators have been using Kickstarter to fund their forays into telling stories, which is what I did. I funded a project through Kickstarter that just got funded in November, and in a book that I'm discussing many different subjects, but I would think that the prime subject of the story is addiction. Addiction and the influence of drugs and stimulants in the army, which I would take that type of story and put it into a dark fantasy setting. So you'd be talking about that kind of, in this case specific, it's the addiction to methamphetamine and its effects in a setting that has dragons and elves and dwarves and whatnot. So trying to juggle that type of storytelling in that type of setting. I'm mostly known. Again, you put one too many items into that question, so I'd have to.
I'll break it down a little bit because as you were talking, I was going to share more of my thoughts and everything. But I definitely agree that you definitely shared a lot with that. And one of the things that you did talk about was the concept of the fundraising and things along that line. And that even comes back to what Dawna was talking about. So share a little bit about the importance of the fundraising and how you went about some of the fundraising that you did.
In the industry currently, in the industry of comic books, while you do have an out for stories that are not the mainstream stories of the Marvel and DC known stories, there are other companies that facilitate you in the way of telling your own stories. It's just that at the end of the day, you have to pitch something that is initially profitable, or at least it is trendy enough that the art company would take a chance on you. And I have been in the industry for nearly 14 years now, so I had pedigree enough to approach any of the companies. It's just that my type of storytelling is really particularly niche. The way I tell a story in a page is not exactly how you see your panel structure of 1, 2, 3, and 4. I tend to involve the reader in the way of telling the story. So my storytelling is quite different from what is normally used. So it was a bit daunting for the art company to just go, I'm going to take a chance on this and see if this book comes out. So what I did was then move to what many creators have been doing prior to the pandemic, and now with the pandemic a little more, which is just resort to crowdfunding and pitch your project to your potential buyer, which is everybody else that would want to read this type of story. So you can try to make a compelling pitch and see if somebody's going to bite. You have your deadline for the campaign, and use social media, use whatever outlet you can. Your friends, everybody, use the power of word of mouth in social media to promote the project. And once it's out enough, the algorithm in Kickstarter actually propels your project a little further into the eyesight of potential pledgers. So essentially, we use the power of word of mouth and social media to try to sell your product. And if it gets funded, fantastic. You now have either your campaign is for something that is already done. You just basically proceed to do whatever it is that you requested the funds for. Or in my case, which was I was funding the execution, the part of the execution of the project, which will be done next year, and the printing and shipping of the project. So again, next year. Gladly, the campaign got funded. It's just on me to continue painting and drawing. Well, it's already drawn, so it's basically I just have to paint and print the project and ship it up.
Yeah, it sounds great. Sounds like it's going to be a great project for 2021. I'm going to bring Trey Barefoot into the conversation as well. But one thing that I was curious to hear from both of you is how the pandemic has impacted your works and how you have managed to survive as so many people are struggling. Actually, on the other show that I did earlier this afternoon, we were talking about the fact that a lot of businesses, whether that's the restaurant business or the arts business, and that can be anything from musicians to painters to a number of others, are finding that they're going to have a very difficult time moving forward. So how have you both been surviving in this pandemic that we're in the middle of, and what kind of advice are you giving to folks as we are in this situation that we are in globally? So I'll start with you, Dawna, and then I'll hear from Marco, and then I'll bring Trey into the conversation as well so we can learn more about him as well.
This whole last year, 2020, what it allowed me to do was to refocus myself on the things that were important and that mattered to me. So I finished a book that I had started, which we had talked about, Financially Fit. And then I have an 8-week program that's going to be coming out right after the release of the book, February 1st. And it's available for pre-sale now. So I was able to take what I was doing in person and shift and change it so it's on an online model now. So now I have a greater scope of reaching and helping more people to be of service to them. Whereas before I did a lot more things in person. So I had to restructure that part of my business for me. And then when I work with clients, it's based on clearing what might be stopping or blocking them from either doing that themselves or attracting in what it is that they want, and then shifting and changing that energy, because once that emotional block is released, then the doors open and new opportunities come. So that's what I do with my clients. And when
how has it impacted you, Marco? Because like I said, I know a number of times artists are oftentimes seen as being solitary and things along those lines. But I know my dad is actually a photographer. He's actually spending some time right now with my nephews and my younger brother and other family members at one of the beaches of North Carolina. But he definitely considers himself an artist and an artist of success here in North Carolina. But right now, he's using this time to do more of his creativity. So I was wondering how you were using this time of what we've been going through globally.
I would say that initially, potentially it wouldn't affect me in the way that it would affect other industries, mostly because, as you just mentioned, we tend, I don't work at a studio. I don't work well in a team studio. I prefer to work alone. So mostly I just work from home, and I would get my gigs from home with contacting editorial via emails and whatnot. But it has affected me in a way that I did have a fairly big project early in the year that was canceled due to the pandemic, which propelled me to, I had been mulling over the idea of finally just getting over with my own personal creation. I had been addressing pitching the book to other companies, and the moment that the project I was in got canceled, I immediately decided, you know what, I might as well just go on to crowdfunding. So I engineered all the process of putting the project on Kickstarter and whatnot, and that's where we are right now. So probably if I hadn't had the pandemic, I would be working on something else and doing my own personal project on the side. and it just shifted the focus onto it. And I'm actually kind of glad that it did, because I'm working on my own terms. Pretty much, like, there is no better way of working than working on your own terms and being able to pay the bills. So that's good.
That makes a lot of sense. And as I bring Trey into the conversation, one of the things I was curious about, Marco, and everything is I sometimes feel that we don't get enough education about creativity in our school system and things along those lines. And I wish that we had more of that. To me, creative people actually are the ones that do a lot of learning about critical thinking. And I know that Dawna in that energy space and even mindfulness, they oftentimes talk about critical thinking. But I think that we don't do enough job here in the States of encouraging that. Is that something that you saw in Africa, where you're originally from, the country that you're in Africa, as well as in Canada? Because I actually think that Canada's education system may be a little bit better than ours in some ways. But I was just curious your take.
It's funny that you asked me this, because I am probably the worst person to ask that question in relation to the States, because I have never lived in the States. I have lived in Mozambique, in South Africa, in Brazil, and now in Canada. And I have experiences from all those places, but the U.S. I know from talking to friends that the school system needs a serious revamp in the States. It needs a serious investment from the government in a variety of items, not only just the critical thinking that comes out of in investing in creativity. I would say that in Mozambique, it would be a similar take. In fact, there is none of that. The incentive that I got to actually delve even more into my artistic side, I got from friends, from family. And when I was in university in Brazil, I was studying architecture there. It was funny, because it was then that my teachers were very invested in telling me, man, like first, they would tell me that it was a bad idea that I was doing architecture, because it was stifling my creativity to do other things. So they kept encouraging me to explore my creative side outside of architecture, but at the same time telling me that I would be a great loss should I drop out. So at the end of the day, I would say that I was more like. All the critical thinking that I got out of creativity, out of investing in creativity, comes out of being self-taught, comes out of analyzing what's happening in the world and relating to that, not specifically to my situation in school or analyzing the way the school system works in the places that I have been. I would say that in general, there is a lot of things that the school system, and by that I say everywhere, outside of the Norse countries, which actually invest. I mean, they invest in empathy, which is something the world lacks. Just straight off the bat, there is investment in from the early times of school. You're already invested in being empathetic, something that we just need, like, everywhere. So. At the end of the day, I think that we could a lot of the rest of the world should take lessons, not only from the school system, but the school system and beyond, from how things are done in some of the Norse countries. I know that I'm generalizing my answer here.
No, that's okay. I was curious to hear people's thoughts, patterns on the different thoughts and everything. But I did want to come to Dawna, and I did want to learn more about Trey as well. But Dawna, along those same lines, do you think that we teach enough about wellness in the school systems? And I definitely know that a lot of times there is supposed to be separation between church and state, which then impacts the school system. But I was wondering about even general wellness, because I don't know. I remember there was a time of having health courses in high school, and I'm far away from my high school years. I'm in my late 50s, but definitely I remember those when I was in school. And talking to my nephews and others that are younger, I don't even know if we do enough of that now. So I was wondering your thoughts on if we do enough teaching, both here in the States as well as worldwide, about wellness.
You know, I can only answer really for the United States and my own experience. In the public school system, I believe, and I would agree with Marco, that there needs to be some changes. And even on the wellness, on health and how to be mindful and all of those. In the private sector, the schools are a little bit different. And my children went to a couple of different private schools as well as public schools. So I have that spectrum. And when I lived in the ashram, my two older children were in their private school, and it was based on, they would show up in the morning, they would do their morning yoga class, they would have meditation, they were taught mindfulness, we were taught skill sets, which gave me a strong foundation in working with them. And then when they transitioned back to public school, they realized they operated from a whole different viewpoint. So in the private sector, those things get addressed a little bit more. Now, my two that I still have in school, this last year, we transitioned to online school, one a couple of years ago and one this last year. So my youngest is home with me and she does online school. And so we practice the things that I learned when I was at the ashram in their teacher training program and doing those. And I incorporate that into her life as a parent, and she knows how to do that. But when they were in the public school system, those things were not addressed. It was strictly, here's the subject, here's what you're learning. And it was a very, very different model. So I think it depends on the type of school.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Trey, if you could share a little bit about your story and about what you've got going on in your life and things of that nature. And then after you share that, one of the things that we did over a couple of our shows on IBM TV the last couple of weeks is we've been asking people what they have learned in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly of 2020. And later on in the show, we'll find out their host for 2021. But definitely, Trey, if you'll just share a little bit about your thoughts and what you're involved in right now.
So, shortly before the pandemic, I moved to Costa Rica, where I've been leading 1-week yoga retreats for 5 years. And I led a yoga retreat in Italy right before I moved here. And so because part of my income was selling international yoga retreats, and that stopped, and as soon as COVID spread, it definitely changed my view of income. I also taught public yoga classes and was planning on doing that here in Costa Rica. And that the industry of that is kind of shut down too, because people don't really want to be close to one another in a public yoga class as much as they did. And also the affluent tourists can't come here anymore because the borders closed. And so basically everything that was my income changed overnight. I had savings, so I was okay for a long time. And I switched from teaching public classes and leading international retreats to exploring wellness and one-on-one consulting. And so I made a website for that, explored and structured how I wanted to offer coaching that felt holistic to me, included people's financial goals and their wellness and spiritual goals and their goals for mindfulness. And I found out that I actually like it more than teaching in the 1 hour way that I spent most of my time doing. I would drive to 3 or 4 studios a day and teach 1 hour public classes. And so now I'm doing 1 to 2 consultations a day, and they're in my own home. And it's been abundant for me, and I feel like I've learned a lot by connecting with strangers in a way that's different than I used to connect with people when I was addressing an entire group, and it was a one-way conversation. Now I'm having more two-way conversations. So I actually feel that I've grown through COVID. In some ways, I have more deep, meaningful conversations in a week than I did when I was rushing to 4 studios a day every day. So it's offered me some really good things. I've studied systemic racism, which was not on my radar before George Floyd was killed. It was on my radar when Ahmaud Arbery was killed, and then Breonna Taylor, and then George Floyd. And I've been researching that a lot. And that's actually how I messaged you or met you, is because I was asking you, as someone who lives in Costa Rica, and who donates money, how can I affect systemic racism in the United States and do more than donate money, but feel that I'm making a difference? So I would like to talk about that today, if it's still on the
Yeah, that's definitely still one of the conversations that is on the table, and I definitely think that that's something that is a very important topic and things along those lines and everything. And I was actually featured on Shree's show, which is a friend of mine that talks about these kind of things, and he was actually he was doing COVID talks almost on a daily basis. He's now cut them back, so he's not doing them daily, and he still does the New York Times read-along. Srinivasan, who is of Indian descent. We were talking about ways that allies could help out in these situations. And one of the things that I always tell allies is to actually speak out themselves and to actually be part of the solution, and not just don't think that they can't be part of the solution. So that's one of the things that I always try to encourage people to do, is actually hear the truth as people present it to you, but also share the truth as you learn it. And that's just one of the ways that I approach that in terms of the way that allies should do things. And as I mentioned earlier, and I do think that the arts can be an important tool in terms of us talking about the things that need to happen and all of that. So I guess I'll kind of like shift the conversation to that, and I'll come to Marco with this. And how do you feel that artists can make statements or help make statements, or to talk to somebody like Trey that is interested in learning about whatever the issue is, whether that's racism, whether that's police violence, or a number of other things? Because I personally have always felt that historically artists have been kind of the voices of change. They don't always get the respect that they need as being the voices of change. But one of my favorite songs that I love enjoying is a classic song about lynching, which is Strange Fruit, the classic Billie Holiday song. But I would love to hear your thoughts about art as a tool for making change in the world.
Well, it's our duty. It's what we have to do. It sucks that I really cannot remember the quote exactly right now. And who does the quote is a musician, an American musician back in the civil rights time. And she says, "Yeah, it really sucks that I have it on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember exactly how it goes and who said it, which is the awful thing. But it is essentially our duty to try to make change, to try to tell stories that bring people awareness about what's going on. If we don't, then who will? Entertainment is a very good tool to bring up knowledge and awareness to every single issue that is going on, that has happened, that continues to happen, and probably will continue to happen for a long time. So, I mean, you mentioned the movie Black Panther, and while I might have my own qualms with the movie, there is a very powerful and very important message in that movie that people would not get if they hadn't seen the movie, if the character was not created back in the 60s. So it is, at least for me, having been a child of oh, somebody said hi. Being that I'm a child of, I'm a mixed race child, and growing up where I grew up, where I experienced racism from both sides, and then traveling abroad and experiencing people being affected by it in several different ways. I only feel that it's my duty to bring up not only the issues of racism, but any type of inequality to the forefront, talk about it, and basically the story that I'm telling, as much as I'm talking about the army and whatnot, I'm also discussing that. So the short answer to what you ask is, it is, for me at least, every single artist's duty to discuss the issues that are uncomfortable in the world, in society. We have to bring it to the forefront. That's it. That's what we have to do. It is our best way to affect change. It is the first thing we have to do, is to bring it to the forefront.
I definitely agree with you. Dawna, what are your thoughts about what allies should do when they're hearing things going around, whether that's around racism or around a number of other issues? But what are your thoughts as somebody that has been in the mindfulness space and everything, but definitely is connected to a lot of different people there in Montana? So what are your thoughts about that?
Just one thing, sorry, before Dawna goes, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It is Nina Simone. The quote is by Nina Simone, that it is the artist's duty to affect change. Go on. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Well, in the first part when you were talking about like with George Floyd and a bunch of other people and with racism, the first thing that I know for me is I turned off the TV and I turned off the news. And I look at it, but from a different point of view. And I don't always readily accept everything that comes through social media or the television channels. And I'm very careful with my news sources because I don't think it's always accurately reported. And then I've been taught through my yogic teachings to do meditations in different ways to uncondition the mind. And when you do that and you look at the news source, you can see the truth, but from a different point of view. And then you can take action on that based on your belief system. And what I would encourage you to do, I grew up in California. By the time I was in fourth grade, white females were the minority because I lived in Silicon Valley. And I have a multiracial family. So all of my first cousins were all of different ethnic backgrounds when I grew up. And so when you take a different approach and take a look at it and look and understand that we are all people first, we're all human, and we all want to be loved, regardless of what our outside of us look like because of our core energy, our core essence. And by turning off what mainstream media is saying, you uncondition the mind, you can practice the mindfulness of it, then you can take that truth based on your experiences and your belief systems, and you can be an advocate. You can become a public speaker. You can make the truth, help the truth rise up to those situations because the truth isn't always accurately reported. And that is something that you can do and then share it. And we are now connected in different ways through social media that we've never been connected to before. We're all connected here on this forum and this platform sharing, and we can use it to move and bridge forward to get the message out to really help create the world a better place. So we're even doing things that we didn't do a year ago because of all of these events and all the things that have happened. So there's always something good. There's always the silver lining or a silver lining in the silver lining that comes out from all of these situations, regardless of what the topic is.
No, I definitely agree with you on that, Dawna, and everything. I want to come back to something that Marco said earlier, and you actually touched on it as well, which is the whole concept of social media and the importance of social media. And it's impacted the way that we both address news stories, because a lot of times we don't even the earlier incidents, when they happened, they were happening in a tunnel, for lack of a kind of better description. So they weren't as readily available to the public. But because of social media, anytime that something happens, it's automatically put out there on social media sites, through Facebook, through YouTube, through a number of other things. But I was just wondering, as an artist, how has social media impacted your artwork? And do you find yourself using social media more in your creation of artwork and in your promotion of your artwork?
Creation, no. Promotion, it's become essential, I believe. I mean, at the end of, one of the things that is very important for us, at least in the comic book community, is conventions. Go to conventions, interact with your fans, meet with other creators, exchange experiences and whatnot. And this year that couldn't happen. So you are more and more you're resorting to social media to promote your product, to engage with your fans, to engage with possible new fans. So you have to have a more mindful connection on how the business side of using internet, which, to be honest, I'm not very good at. One of the first things is that if anybody that follows me on social media will notice that I'm fairly political and I'm very outspoken. So the moment I tend to expand on my thoughts on like the topics that you just mentioned, racism, Black Lives Matter, all the stuff like that. The moment I engage with people that have, I would say, more conservative views, they tend to just go away, and which is it means that I'm losing potential clients. And honestly, it doesn't bother me none. So at the end of the day, it is crucial to be mindful of the business side of social media if you're using it for that purpose. I tend to not to. I promote my product. I promote the stories that I tell. I promote, but at the same time, I'm very frank in the way that I am flat out saying this is addressing this kind of issues. I actually made when. I don't know if it was. I think it was the George Floyd, the assassination. That at the end of it, I made a piece. With a theme around Rage Against the Machine's, one of the Rage Against the Machine songs, and it made the rounds. It had an impact, and I was grateful that was the case. So I tend to use it on that way, and I am very knowledgeable of the fact that I'm less business like and more emotional in my interaction with social media. It makes some people that would then be more engaged into my social media or into my social media practices if I was more business like. It's just that I'm not. I pour my heart into everything that I do, and it affects my business in that way. And at the end of the day, what my answer goes to the fact that in the situation that we find ourselves currently, if you have your business online, if you're business savvy, you're going far. That's essentially it. If you're emotional, maybe not.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you just said, Marco. One of the things that struck me about that was I've heard a lot of folks, and I would love to hear from all three of you about this, and it actually came up on the show earlier this afternoon, was I've actually felt that a lot of our young people are being much more open about their thoughts around a number of issues, whether that's race, whether that's orientation, or a number of things along that line. And I actually give them a lot of credit for taking a leadership role. And I was just wondering, would y'all agree with me that kind of the I guess it would be the Gen X and the generation that's coming up after them, so the ones that were born in 2000, have a more positive attitude about life and are more open to different kind of views? Because that's one of the things that I'm observing from our young folks. And like I said, I'm well into my late 50s, but I do have friends of all age ranges. So I was wondering your thoughts. So I guess I'll go with you first, Dawna, and then I'll come to Marco and Trey. But do you feel that our youth are definitely being more open to acceptance of different viewpoints?
I believe that they are, but I also believe that there's differences too, depending on your environment that you live in. And the United States is quite vast. And so California is so different than New York, and then it's very different than Montana. I live in a town of 4,000 people now, but I do see a lot more openness and a lot more acceptance. And one of the factors that brings that in is that the use of social media, because through the internet, through the different social media platforms, it opens them up to a wide variety that is outside of their community. And my one daughter, she has friends all over the world and has connected to them through social media and has been open to a lot of different paths and a lot of different ways that wouldn't necessarily happen in a town of 4,000 people. So I do believe that there is more openness in that, and that they are more unified in their viewpoint because they are banding together of what's right and what's wrong and really how society should look, how our culture should be. And I see that coming out with them.
Yep, definitely would agree with you on that. What are your thoughts on that, Marco?
It's much the same. I believe that the advent of social media has given people the voice to engage into more issues, to be aware of more issues, which also has given other people voices to be not the best people online, not to portray the best version of themselves because of the advent of anonymity or the lack of consequence. But at the same time, I believe that the positives outweigh the negatives on this. I think specifically the younger people that is more tech savvy nowadays. They're definitely more savvy in the ways of the internet, in the ways of social media. They know their way around. They know what to do. They know what to search for, what to engage in, and how to be more connected to the issues at hand. So at the end of the day, yes, the advent of social media has basically changed the way people engaged with knowledge, which is good. I mean, it can be terrifyingly bad when the knowledge that they're engaging is not accurate or just not knowledge at all. But again, as I said, the positives far outweigh the negatives in that.
And what are your take on that, Trey? Part of the thing that you mentioned was the fact you wanted to learn more about how folks were engaging in community. But what is your thoughts about what folks have said here on this particular evening or afternoon?
I think that people are growing. I think that our progress looks slow because the country is so divided and contentious about a lot of our cultural issues and our cultural values. But I know I resonate with what Marco was saying about receiving negativity or being bullied over prejudice, because as a gay person, I was really aggressively bullied over that, coming from the Bible Belt culture of North Carolina, especially 20 and 25 years ago when that was happening to me. And now people don't bully me anymore over being gay. I can go to a dinner party or to Walmart and check out at the grocery store without people yelling slurs at me, which I did not actually have the luxury of that 20 years ago, because I did get a lot of anger over my sexuality. And I think the same thing is happening with body positivity. There were no people 20 years ago speaking about body positivity. It didn't exist. There were only the Britney Spears types. There was never a Lizzo as your, if you're 10 years old, there was never a Lizzo as your role model, as the poster in your bedroom saying that you're beautiful, even though society is telling you that you're ugly or horrible, fat or stupid. You're beautiful and you can do what I'm doing. There was not as much of that. And I think social media has helped that. And I can see it. It's tactile and tangible and visceral for me because of the treatment that I receive just walking down the street or going to a store. I see that our culture is slowly becoming more accepting and tolerant and more inclusive of all types of diversities with your body type, with your sexuality. And with things like law of attraction, things that are related to mindfulness or meditation or alternative spirituality. People are less averse to that now. People are less likely to call you a Satanist because you went to yoga class. But 20 years ago, if you went to a yoga class, you were a freak and you might have been called a Satanist. So I think there's a lot of overarching evolution in terms of accepting more progressive ideals and more diversity.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with y'all on that and everything. There definitely seems to be more acceptance, and I'm glad to see that kind of acceptance on a more regular basis and everything along those lines. Marco, if you could tell a little bit about specifically your latest art projects and some of the things that you're working on specifically, because I know that our listeners from around the world and IBM TV does have listeners from some of the places that y'all are in, like Brazil, like some of the African countries. As a matter of fact, one of our other shows is from Nigeria, and that's a show that deals with spirituality, and he's been talking a lot about police violence, because I didn't even know that police violence was an issue in other countries as much as it is here in the United States. But there are other countries that are facing similar issues. But I would love to hear you talk about your artwork right now, and then I might get into some of the stuff about police situations around the globe.
Yeah. The situation in Nigeria is troublesome. It's not only police brutality, it's government overreach and way bigger problems than that. I think I'm mostly known for a set of books in Marvel and DC. I did a known stint at the Swamp Thing at DC Comics. I worked with Spider-Man at Marvel, which normally where people gravitate towards. But the book that, as I said, the book that I've been working on specifically, I mean, I've been working on that since 2016. It's, as I said, it's a story about addiction in a fantasy setting. And anything that I say about it's a bit of a spoiler. So it's, as I said, is essentially I am trying to address some of the issues that we are facing on nowadays in culture. In that book, I mean, you will see commentary, even a commentary in corporations if you want to, but again, in a setting that has dragons into it. So how that factors into it is just, you have to read it. I would say that my biggest trump card in it is the fact that, as I mentioned, my way of telling the story in a page, I like the idea of engaging the reader into participating in the act of telling a story. So, for instance, I have a sequence where a character is emerging from a fever dream, and as reality is setting in, the whole setting, the whole sequence in that page is framed by a tree, and the bottom panel is the root of the tree, where the whole sequence ends in that page is the root of the tree, meaning that this character is emerging from a fever dream into reality, and the tree is rooting them in reality. And the color palette changes from vivid reds and yellows and oranges to gray, in the situation where the reality of that person sucks. There's nothing pretty, there's nothing to celebrate. It's gray, it's dull, they're crying, and everything is just not as peachy as it could be, which is basically the story that I'm going into, following what's happening to this character, why the fever dream, all that fact. But I'm trying my best to portray the effects, as I said, the effects of methamphetamine addiction withdrawal, and one of them is psychosis, especially in somebody that has already been prone to have psychosis. So that is an element of that.
Cool. So hold on one second, and you can tell I'm switching computers because my computer is about to go dead and everything. So hold on one second, and we'll move that one out of the way. So I had to switch computers because one computer was trying to dial me and all things like that. So that's what happens with technology, unfortunately. So sometimes you have to do some quick adaptations, even on the fly. So we have adapted and moved into the fly there. So definitely glad that y'all were patient. But if you're not, it would have still gone. Because one thing about Streamlab is that even if I had bounced off, y'all would have still been in the room, so y'all could have conversated among yourself. I was trying to do a little quick juggling and things along those lines. So that's what happens sometimes in the fast world of internet TV.
It was 1 second. It was barely anything.
Hold on 1 second. I think the other one might still be on. There, that should be better. Can you hear me better now?
No, it's good.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, that was a little bit of technical glitches and everything, so I had to switch one computer from one to the other. So I'm glad that y'all can continue to hear me. But definitely, I think that folks will be very much interested in hearing about the work that you're doing, Marco. And I know a lot of folks are very much into that whole DC and Marvel kind of background and things of that nature. I'm oftentimes amazed at even the adults that will have whole discussions as to whether they prefer the DC or the Marvel comics and things along those lines. One of the shows that we have here is a show called Gamers Den, which is about the video games, and that's every Thursday afternoon. And we've actually got some folks that have created some of those video games, as well as just some folks that are involved in that space. And even in that space, they oftentimes have conversations as to whether there are a Marvel or a DC comic fan and all of that. So on a lighter note, and we'll get back to some more serious topics, I'm going to ask Trey, are you Marvel or are you DC?
Oh, I am Marvel. Yeah.
All right. What about you,
And my
Dawna?
favorite-
Marvel?
I have to go with Marvel characters. That's what I'm familiar with.
And you worked with one of them, so I guess that's just good news for you, right, Marco?
I mean, it just depends. It's funny that you mentioned that. Oh, there's that now people are like adults are talking about that. There's always a stigma about new types of media. Back in the day, it was television. Like, oh no, television shows and whatnot. The movie industry is back when it was just theater. The movie industry was being shunned, and then it became something, and then it was television versus the movie industry. And I mean, the comic books have been around for a long time. They have been telling very important storylines and stories for a very long time. It's just that now, with the advent of the movie industry dipping into comic books, it becomes this all new thing of comics have been around for a while, and their stories have been adult for a very long time. I mean, the Swamp Thing storylines, Animal Man, or insert any of the storylines that Neil Gaiman has written back in the day. I think he's off now. I mean, even video games, comic books, they tend to get the stigma of, oh, this is just for children. And that's not true, because there can be a lot of tough subject matter, storylines, and stories that can be told in those medium that are very present, that are very important. I mean, I had I played a game called Gris this year. That is, the whole storyline is about dealing with grief, and you are interacting with it. And at the end of the game, you're crestfallen. Like, oh, the message is passed through you, and the fact that you have interacted with the story makes it that much more impactful. So it is. I would say that the stigma around these things being for children, I mean, it's becoming more and more a thing of the past, because those stories are the stories being told in these media, for as much as they tend to be regarded as stuff for children, they're not. They're just as valid as any of the other more recognized mediums of storytelling.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because one of the things that I heard recently is I'm good friends with a filmmaker here in Durham named Rodrigo Dorfman, and he's written a number of books, but a lot of folks will know his dad more than anybody, which is Ariel Dorfman, who wrote the movie, I think it's called The Maiden or something along those lines. But he also was very much involved with a book about comic books and the fact of how comic books are tied into politics, and more specifically, how even capitalism can be thrown into those early comic books and things along those lines. So
I can give you one example.
The case.
I can give you one example. The X-Men. The X-Men is an allegory for insert minority here. The X-Men they appear in the time of the civil rights, and they were at the time an allegory for the civil rights. I mean, Charles Xavier and Magneto, they were essentially avatars for Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, the two approaches to the civil rights at the time. And right now, obviously, you insert space stories into the X-Men and whatnot, but they've always been there, still today, an allegory for minorities, to the point that I think it was 5 years ago that the X-Men moved to San Francisco because of what they represent. So yes, I mean, even back in the 60s, you can say, yeah, some of the stories were kind of goofy, but the allegory was there, and the storylines were there. The mutants were hated because they were different, and that still remains today. So yeah, I'm just giving you an example on how those things that tend to be regarded, oh, these are just for children. The underlying motives are not.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you on that. I was wondering what your take was, Dawna, as one that is a parent, if you think that sometimes that there is a political nature to comics and just things alone, that it might be considered more children kind of oriented.
There is. And even just watching children's movies, whether it's political or if it has a current event, there's those themes. They run throughout all of our environments. And if it's not yet something culturally or in the environment or political, if you watch the movies, you'll see it come out within a couple of years. So it's a two-way street, because it's either prominent now going into the media, whether what forum you use, whether it's comic books, whether it's art, whether it's TV, or the movies, or it's a new topic, and then that's what society creates after within a couple of years. There's always a relationship.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I know that, like I said, the IBM TV folks are definitely a global community. We've got shows from all over. We've definitely got the gentleman from Nigeria. And I would love to hear more of your take, Marco, as to what's going on in Nigeria, because you started to elaborate on some of your take on what's going on there. So I'd love to hear more of that. But before we get to that, one of the things that I love hearing is people that don't know all of the global places in the world and learning more about them. I know that I would like to do more world traveling. I don't think with the pandemic that's going to be happening anytime soon. So that being said, Trey, what can you tell me about Costa Rica that I should know as a North Carolinian that now lives in Costa Rica? And I'm going to bring that same question to you, Dawna, about Montana. And Marco, you've been in so many places. You can probably tell us about Mozambique, Brazil, and a number of other places, including Canada. But I'll start with you, Trey. What should I know about Costa Rica? What should the folks that are watching now that have never been to Costa Rica know about Costa Rica? And what should they expect, both the good as well as the bad of Costa Rica?
I'll start with the good. The good is that the culture here is very, very much slower paced, and everyone is more attuned to appreciating the simple joys of being alive, celebrating a meal with your family, going to the beach, and being present in the smallest daily interactions is something that's really common here that I don't see it whenever I go back to the United States. I'm always struck by how distracted people are and how not present people are when they're talking to you. Oftentimes, not everyone in the United States is distracted, but it's more common in the United States for people to live really fast. So I see in Costa Rica, people live so much slower, and they smile more. They seem more open. They seem more grounded, more present. So the culture here is probably my number one thing that I say is so amazing and expansive for your perspective. If you've never traveled outside of the United States, is to see a culture that's more simple and more grounded and less material. And the nature here is really beautiful. It's around 80 degrees all year round on the Caribbean side where I live, and beaches are some of the most beautiful in the world. If it's not a weekend, I can go walk on the beach in a white sand, turquoise water beach lined with palm trees, looking like a typical calendar of paradise, and I can be the only person on the whole beach for a mile or two. And so the rainforests here are also some of the most beautiful in the world. There's volcanoes and hot springs and tons of acreage of natural parks and protected land and hiking trails. And I've been on one of the top white water rafting rivers in the world. It's called Pacuare. It's amazing. And that's here in Costa Rica. So the natural resources are some of the most beautiful and well preserved in the world. There's no army in Costa Rica. None of their money goes towards a military. They spend much more of their energy on, by energy I mean time and staff and funding. They spend much more of that on protecting natural resources and environmental initiatives.
Wow. And what about the bad aspect of it? There's got to be a bad aspect as well.
The bad aspect. Well, it is a developing country, and so there is a little bit more kind of random crime here than where I was living in the United States. But I think there's neighborhoods with high crime in most of the big cities in the United States, and so it depends on if you live in a small affluent town, there's maybe almost no crime, and then if you live in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, in a big city, there's more crime. So there is definitely more crime in the specific town where I live. You can't walk alone at night, but that's because there's a lot of people. It's not violent crime for the sake of violence, like just happened in the United States with the guy going into a church and killing or it's a bowling alley. Sorry, not a church. So that doesn't happen, but there's like theft so that people can get $10 to buy food. So that the crime would be the downside of maybe not the whole country of Costa Rica, just the town where I live has some random crime.
Gotcha. What about Montana? What's the good, the bad of Montana? Like I said, you're in Montana, but you live in Silicon Valley, which is kind of like the opposite of the Research Triangle Park area, because we also have like a lot of scientists and pharmaceutical industries and computer companies here in this part of North Carolina, but it's kind of like the East Coast version of Silicon Valley, but now you're in Montana. So what is the good, the bad of Montana?
Well, it's interesting because I've been to Costa Rica and I've been to Brazil. And when I flew home from Brazil this year, the very next day, everything shut down. So I made it home crossing all the borders in various parts of Canada. So it's interesting listening to your viewpoints, because so far with Trey, I totally agree with what I experienced in Costa Rica. But I plan on going back in 2021. Montana, it's very different here. And that's what I like about living in Montana. Growing up in Silicon Valley, having been to New York City, they're very crazy places for me to be. And here we're surrounded by nature. I'm in a very small community. You have to love the elements. We have 4 seasons. So when it snows, you're out snow shoveling, you go skiing, you go cross country, you go snowshoeing. In the summer, we can kayak, we go hiking, there's boating, there's fishing, there's everything. So you really have to be an outdoor enthusiast to live in Montana, but it's not uncommon for me to go out and like chop my own wood, because we do that too. The downside to this is in the area I'm at. Well, what I love is if you can choose anywhere to live in the world, live where you want to live. This is where I choose to live. So this got to be a choice for me. And just the beauty of the nature of everything. The downside is if you want to go anywhere, you have to travel a little bit to get there. So all of the major stores are 20 to 30 minutes away. And when I say travel, that's probably 15, 20 miles to travel that. The roads, they're not always the best because they're ice covered in the winter. But being in a small community, everybody knows everybody, and reputation is everything. So there's not a lot of diversity, and you will eventually run into somebody who knows somebody and somehow you're always all connected because everybody knows everything about everyone else. So there's no secrecy, there's no autonomy, there's no being anonymous. You will find out about everyone. It's just the nature of a small town.
Yep, that's true. And I've lived in small towns before. I definitely grew up in one called Warrenton, North Carolina. So I definitely know about that small town life and all of that. So, Marco, you can actually talk about 3 cities. One of them has been on my wish list of places to visit, that being Brazil and everything. Haven't had the pleasure of getting there or even getting to Mozambique or even for that matter, Canada. So if you want to share a little bit about those 3 places that you've had the pleasure of being to, because you've definitely done some world traveling, and those are 3 amazing cities. Like I said, Brazil is on my wish list.
It's like those are, I mean, those are big countries. Well, Canada is a big country, but Brazil is a big country as well. And it's funny because when I went there, it is so vast and so different in a way very similar to the United States that you arrive in Sao Paulo, it's mostly what the brochure advertises, like this is Brazil, and then you go far north, it's completely different. It's the speed is it's way slower. Everybody's a little more calmer because Sao Paulo is basically the most cosmopolitan city in Brazil and one of the biggest cities in the world, one of the 3 biggest cities in the world. So even in the city of Sao Paulo, you can find different districts that seem like different little countries. So just Sao Paulo itself is it's like New York. It doesn't do what Toronto does, which is Toronto just parades themselves as a mini New York, and they're very proud of that, of trying to be a mini New York. Whereas Sao Paulo, it's its own flavor. It's very hard to describe like super fast what this is. But I lived in the south of Brazil in Porto Alegre, which is closer to Argentina and Paraguay. And in that way, it is very similar. I mean, the winters are very cold. Sometimes it snows. You get temperatures of -10, -14 Celsius, which anybody that talks about Brazil would never even imagine that you get those temperatures. It's a part of the country that is mostly Northern European colonies, so former colonies. So you get a lot of Norse constructions and weird names. At the same time, you're bordering with Paraguay and Argentina, so culturally it's very similar to that as well. So I would say that the state that I lived in Rio Grande do Sul, it has nothing that you think, oh, this is Brazil. It is actually the top model, Gisele Bündchen. She's from that state, and the very thought of, oh, this is a Brazilian woman as it is advertised. It's not Gisele Bündchen. It's not what you think. So on the same vibe. What's her name? What's the woman from Mad Max Fury Road? Charlize Theron is South African. And you don't think, oh, South Africa. The first person that you think is probably Nelson Mandela. Not Charlize Theron, but she's from there as well. And I lived in South Africa, or at least I visited often enough that I say that I was living there because my folks had a house in Johannesburg. During apartheid and post, immediately post apartheid, when Mandela was elected, post Nelson Mandela, post Nelson Mandela. So I've experienced different types of South Africa. One of them was amazing, which is when Mandela was president. The others are debatable. Again, if I go into detail, we will not leave here. I would say that Mozambique, people definitely do not know what Mozambique is or where it is even. So I would just localize. It's, if you think of Madagascar in the continent of Africa, Mozambique is the country that mirrors Madagascar on the continent, and it's beachland. There's nice seafood. It's great. It's great to be there during the beach time. It's a baby country. It's only independent. It's only been independent from Portugal since 1975. So a lot of our trends, a lot of our mannerisms, a lot of even our culture is influenced by Portugal. I mean, 75 wasn't a long time ago. And Canada. I have lived in Toronto and I've lived in I have lived in Montreal. I'm currently I live like in a village 2 hours away from Montreal downtown. So I'm no longer living in a big city, which normally is my environment. I love the hustle and bustle of the town. I love going to the subway, hanging out with people, going out whenever I want. I love the liberty that I'm afforded at a big city, and Toronto and Montreal had that, even though in much different flavors, because Toronto, as I said, likes the idea of being a mini New York, whereas Montreal sells themselves as the French side of Canada. But what you get here is actually the true Canada, which is the French side and the Anglo side living together. And I love that. Even though I'm like, the village that I'm currently living in is mostly on the French side, which I had to dug up my French skills before when I came here, and now I'm happy that I relearned how to speak French in order to move around. That I'm happy that I added a third or fourth language to my repertoire. So that it's the kind of things that pushes you, like traveling to different places that you have never been to. I mean, Trey, any of you would know this, but traveling to places you have never been to, especially in cultures you have never engaged, forces you to grow. In any way, it just forces you to grow. Living in those places more than doing vacation, you have to relate to people. You have to find your way around those places. So I'm very happy that I've done that over my life in order to expand my horizons. I mean, coming from a small country in a continent that people tend to just equate to as one big country, your mind is, for as much as you have a knowledge of the world, when you're in that place, you're still limited. So going away, exploring the world has given me has broadened my horizons in a way that I never expected. I mean, I tend to tell this to my girlfriend, that the place where I live in right now is in the middle of the woods, and I would only see this type of place in postal cards. Like, I would never imagine that I would live where like there's bears and deer and whatever, just jumping around, frolicking around. I would never thought that would be my life, mostly because at this time of the year, I'm at the beach in Mozambique and eating lobster. So the fact that I am experiencing -30 and shoveling snow and engaging the possibility of either a deer or a bear would pass by as I'm doing all those things, it feels a bit surreal. But at the same time, as I said, the fact that I've engaged in traveling the world has brought me here, and that I'm that much richer for it.
That makes a lot of sense. And one of the things you said that I wish more of us did, and I know I'm guilty of not doing enough of it when I was in high school and college, it was actually my Achilles heel. And I'll admit my Achilles heel, those that I have and everything, was foreign language. And I know that I am good at speaking English, and I can speak a couple of slang words in some slang dialects of different regions of the country, but I know no French, or past a couple of basic words. The same with Spanish and all of that. So if I have a regret, is that I wish that I learned more of those foreign languages. So when I travel to places like Costa Rica or places like that I'd be able to speak in those different languages.
It's never too late.
So I'll have to keep that in mind. Keep it in mind to get out there and learn those languages. I know my dad was actually taking some of those courses and learning languages at a late part of his life. He might have been in his, he's in his 80s now, so he might have been around 50 or 60 at the time. So close to my age now when he was learning a foreign language. I think it was for a trip he was taking and everything. So I agree, it is not too late. So I have to get ready to do that at some point. One of the things that fascinated me about Brazil, and I don't know if that's still the case, and you can tell me if it is, was I remember that seems like it was one of those countries that was facing a lot with the environment and a lot with pollution. I know there are a number of other countries that were facing that as well. But I do think that I saw a documentary about there being a lot of waste that's still there in Brazil. Is that still the case, or am I mistaken on that?
Well, it's more the case now because of the idiot president that they have now, which his mission is literally to destroy the world. He's killing the forests, dumping the waste there, and he's killing the forests, opening up for farmers because they pay him. So at the end of the day, yes, that's gotten worse. I would say that the problem with the pollution is on the bigger metropolis, specifically São Paulo. The metropolis of São Paulo is, the pollution there is astonishing, mostly because of traffic. But it is unfortunate that one of the lungs of the world, the Amazon forest, is being devastated by greed. That's essentially it. So I would say that the larger problem, and the problem is, in Brazil, is the people governing it.
I can definitely see that. And actually, I have a friend of mine that lives nearby. She's actually probably half my age, because if I'm pushing near 60, I think that Michelle just told me that she's turning 30, or just recently turned 30 and everything. But she is from Brazil, and she actually compared that president that you're talking about to the person that's currently leaving 1600. And I think that she told me that in her mind, he might be worse, which I found kind of hard to believe.
It's spectacular that the damage that he's causing right now, it is worse. What he's doing to these people and everybody else involved in the planet as well, through the damage that he's doing specifically to the Amazon. I'm not even talking about what he's actually doing to the people and how he's engaging the pandemic currently right now. He is a criminal. That man is a criminal.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like that's what my friend had told me, that they felt that way about him as well, that he seemed to have that kind of criminal background and everything. But
yes, he does. Yes.
And it seems to me that that's even, but I was having a conversation on one of our other shows, and I'd love to hear from all three of y'all think about this and everything, about the environment and just the environment in general. Because it seems to me that we're not, while we're facing the pandemic is definitely impacting the world, but we're not paying attention to what we're doing to the environment on a global basis. And I was actually watching a PBS special where they were talking about the coral reefs and the fact that a lot of those coral reefs are almost to the point of destruction, and that can definitely impact us as human beings. And I would love to hear what y'all's thoughts are as to how we as humans are dealing with the environment. So I'll go with you first, Dawna, because I know that you're very much into your spiritual connections and things along those lines, and definitely connected to our animal life. So I'll go to you first, Dawna, and then Trey, then come to Marco. But I'd love to hear your thoughts as to how humans are treating the environment.
You know, here in Montana, we take a very good care of our environment. In where we're at, I'm very close to Glacier Park, I'm in a high tourist area, and we're very, to live in Montana, we're very proud to live here and to take care of it. And it's about the animals really more in our environment, and making sure that we clean up after ourselves, our waste is picked up, we're not littering and those types of things, even with our high tourist volume, because we understand and realize that we live in the animals' environment, not necessarily the animals are in our environment. And so we have lots of bears, we have lots of mountain lions, coyotes and wolves, and they can be predators for us. So we have to take very good care of all of that and the sanitation to attract them into where we are here, because we want to make sure they stay, in the mountains and in the unpopulated areas that way. But recently I was seeing, and I saw an article about how, like, the masks, the face masks we wear, all the paper ones and stuff, and how they're going into the oceans. And we're going to have to do ocean cleanup and river cleanup and different things like that for the environments to sustain, because even with the pandemic, there's waste left over from that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, and I'd love to hear Trey's thoughts about how the environment is in Costa Rica. But it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was watching, I think it was a separate PBS special, but they were talking about the fact of, it might have been off of the coast of Scotland or one of the European countries, but there were a number of golf balls that had been hit into the ocean, like tens of thousands of golf balls, and it was impacting like the otters that were going down there trying to find natural food, but instead they were eating either the golf balls or they were eating the other sea creatures that had also eaten the golf ball, so it impacted their diet and everything of that nature. So it was threatening these animals that were basically just trying to survive themselves. But our waste, whether it's the mask or whether it's the golf balls or a number of other things, have been impacting what's going on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Trey.
Well,
yes,
if I'm
yes, go ahead, Dawna.
Oh, I was just going to say, on a global scale, and this is where I admire Costa Rica for what they've been doing environmentally. On a global scale, plastic is a huge concern. And in the US, we're a large consumer of plastic. And because we drink out of plastic water bottles and things, are getting plastic into our own bodies. If you go over to Europe, you're always served everything out of glass. But in Costa Rica, I believe you can't even get a plastic bag there anymore. Like here, everyone's plastic there. They are the first plastic-free country, I believe, or very close to eliminate plastic out of their environment because of the waste product. So with that.
Trey, is that true? And what are your thoughts about how Costa Rica is treating the environment?
Yeah, the state that I live in is not has a different culture than all the other states in Costa Rica. It's the only one that was not settled by the Spanish, and it was settled by Jamaican indentured servants. And so only about 150 years ago. So when slavery here ended 150 years ago, they built the town that I live in. So there's probably more of a Jamaican flavor. It's more Afro-Caribbean than Spanish in the town that I live in. And we do have plastic bags here. Most people bring their own grocery bags and reuse them. But the grocery stores will give you plastic bags in this state. So that's probably all the other states where they have the laws that you're talking about, Dawna. Yeah. And the culture here really embraces permaculture. There's at least there's a huge expat community in Costa Rica, and a lot of the expat community is interested in and has built permaculture farms. There's a woman who distributes and delivers organic food all over the village that I live in. Her whole business is delivering your once a week order of organic food. So there's a movement for more organic food here. And I think that Costa Rica can continue protecting their environment because they're conscious of not spending more money on military than they do on environmental protection. So I think they'll be innovative throughout or as we move into the future. I think that the United States needs to really change its environmental laws. We have way too many oil subsidies and residue from the oil wars. And our military industrial complex seems to prevent the energy innovation that we need in terms of solar and wind. I've also lived on Block Island in Rhode Island, and it's the first place to sustain itself with wind energy in the United States. That was really recent, but they proved that the United States can copy more progressive European countries like the Netherlands and Belgium and have a lot more of their energy come from wind than we thought possible. And I think that we need more legislation for solar innovation and building more factories for solar panels. And I just recently watched a documentary about how if our farming and agricultural industry, even meat industries, if they would have animals graze on the land, it would sequester enough carbon that it would be able to not only pause climate change and global warming, but it would reverse it and cause a regeneration of the ozone layer and environmental wholeness. So I think that we have a lot of work to do with the environment. We need a lot of legal changes.
Yeah, we definitely need some of those legal changes and everything along those lines. And definitely know that some of y'all have to leave it after a while, Dawna being the first one, but we're going to keep this conversation going for a while. But Dawna, if you could definitely share a little bit more about your book and the book's kind of like primary themes that you have written about within the book and any ways that folks can reach out to you. And one of the things that I do with all my guests is I try to give like a positive thought that they would like to share with the world. So I try to do that with all of the various podcasts that I do. So that's one of the things that I would love to hear from you as well. So I'll start off with the book. If you could just share a little bit about the book and everything.
Okay. The book, it's called Financially Fit, Living the Secrets to an Abundant and Prosperous Life. It is available on pre-sale right now on Amazon, and it will launch February 1st, 2021. And the content of the book is about really how to align your subconscious beliefs with what you consciously know, with the energy of money, because you are an energetic being. And when you do that, you can start effortlessly creating. So the book talks about how happiness is on the inside, how we can see our own worth versus monetary worth. I talk about purposeful creation and how to align your divine feminine and your divine masculine brain to create intentionally. Energy debts, money debts, how that has an effect on you. It's all the things I wish I knew before I was a financial advisor, when I worked in that realm, and how we are as an energy being. The best way to get in contact with me is either through social media or through my website at dawnacampbell.com. And if you just typed in my name, it should come up in social media. And you can either private message me or just send me a message through the website. I will respond personally. And I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions about any of the work that I'm doing. A positive thought or something moving forward. I believe in our heart of hearts that we should always create the world a better place to live, whether it's for you, for another person, for the environment, for the culture, for the community, in whatever way you see that you can leave a positive impact or the world, the globe, in a better place than when you first came here. I believe that's our own personal missions and what we're meant here to do. So as a healer, I have a heart-centered healing philosophy, and I incorporate that. And that's my greatest desire, is leaving this place better than when I came. And that's why
that makes a lot of sense, and that's definitely a great prayer to share with the world and everything. You've mentioned real quickly about energy debt, and a lot of times we do think more about the money debt than the energy debt. Could you explain a little bit more as to what energy debt is in your mind? And also, if you've got any advice for Trey, who also shares some of that wellness space with you in terms of yoga and mindfulness and all of that.
So energy debts. Have you ever woke up in the morning and you're tired and you're still exhausted because you didn't get enough sleep? Well, that exhaustion comes from emotion, whether that's anxiety, depression, stress, and it ties directly to the type of brainwave pattern that you might be in. And a lot of times we're staying too long in what's called a beta brainwave. When you go into meditation, you go into an alpha brainwave or a theta brainwave, and it lowers the pattern. It doesn't stay as high. And that's where you start experiencing those peaceful, joyful, more serene types of moments. And what happens is in an energy debt, we get used to an addiction to an emotion because it creates a chemical balance in the body. So if you're high stress, anxiety, frustration, depression, any of those, it creates a chemical response in the body and you get addicted to it. So you have to keep doing it and keep doing it to keep that energy flowing through. Well, what it does is over time, those emotions create an energy debt because it wears out the physical body. And that's when physical level dis-ease can set in. So people who, for example, may get the diagnosis of cancer or diabetes, those energies were there in a frequency in their energy field anywhere from 3 to 7 years before it went into the physical body. So that energy debt, it chips away about who you are in the who we are as an electromagnetic being, and eventually it'll go into the physical body. But if you shift the focus, the opposite of that is also true. So the higher vibrations, the higher frequencies, the happiness, the joy, the peace, the love, the balance, the kindness, those types of energies build your energy supply out. And how it works, you can even do a physical demonstration of it with an energy debt. If you were to do a muscle test and you would have someone push down on your arm, when you say no, it condenses the energy field down because it's a negative. So anger, frustration, boredom, rage, revenge, all of those will condense the energy field down and keep it closer to the body. If it condenses down too much, it goes into the physical body, where if you say something positive and they muscle test and it's a yes, your arm will stay out straight. So when you test the higher frequencies, happiness, joy, prosperity, abundance, your energy field stays out and strong. And if we stay in those lighter states of being, the lower energy forms like the negativity can't affect you. And then you get to start creating your life on purpose because you're in those higher states, and it's those higher qualities that attract back the things we ask for. So too far, too low on an emotional feeling scale, what happens is it'll go into the physical body, creating an energy debt within yourself. So a lot of our physical level dis-ease, like adrenal fatigue or restless legs syndrome, a lot of those different types of things that happen come from because we're not in an optimal state of being, because we're not in the right vibrational frequency to hold and maintain it. So it chips away at us.
It sounds like we really should need to connect with like-minded people and have some very positive energy when we're working with these like-minded people. I know that that's something that I try to believe in on a regular basis, is trying to connect with positive people. But sometimes you have to let go of the negative folks in your life, and sometimes the negative folks are also related to you. So how do you deal with that and everything? And I know that may be a long conversation, but I was just wondering, what is your advice when you know that there are folks that you need to let go of that might be expressing negative energies in your life, even if they're part of your family structure?
I always take into consideration how I feel when I'm with people. And if I don't feel the best, then I will start limiting my interactions with them. My own family, my children, of course, grew up in this environment, so they don't know anything different outside of what they've experienced in the world. They know and how we lived. My biological family that raised me where I'm from, they don't have the same viewpoint and the same perceptions as I do. So everything that I do is completely foreign. So I have very little interaction with them, my brothers, my father, and they all live now on the East Coast, because there's just not that understanding. And I would rather have, hi, how are you? Haven't talked to you in a couple of years than nothing at all. So we don't talk about what I do and how I do it. What I have created for myself is my inner circle family. And these are some people that live within my neighborhood that I'm very close to, that are in the same like-mindedness as I am, that I regard as like parents and sisters and family members. And I spend a lot of time with them. And so I created my own energetic family that I have, my inner circle that way. And then I have other friends that I've known for a long time that I'm really close with, to have that place for me, and we interact that way. I ask for their advice, they ask for my advice, and I created my own environment. But that filtration happens very naturally, because if you're vibrating up here, this person can choose to join you, and if not, they stay down here. Eventually they go and you meet somebody up here that matches where you're at vibrationally. It's a very unconscious process that we go through when it happens. But for me, with family, I made some choices just because I need to stay in the state that I want to be in. Otherwise, I'm not a good healer for other people. So.
That makes a lot of sense. And Trey seems to be in that same healing space as you are and everything. So what advice would you give to him as a fellow healer?
Follow your heart.
What advice? Okay.
You want me to give Trey advice?
Yes, you give Dawna, you give Trey advice.
Heart. Yeah, always follow your heart in everything that you do. The best thing that I have is a mantra that I was given to when times were really tough for me about 15 years ago. And when I was doing some writing, and it said, trust and you will see, believe and you will know, have faith that all is well. Follow your heart and spirit will lead you. So just always follow your heart. It's proven right every single time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Thank
Definitely,
you.
I can agree with that. That seems very powerful advice and everything like that. And I know that Marco also believes in following his heart as well. So definitely, it seems like he's doing that with his artwork and everything. So how important do you find the mindfulness world in terms of the creation of your art? And do you practice any forms of yoga or mindfulness when you are developing your artwork? Or do you find that helps you in your creative process?
How do you define mindfulness, though? What's the definition of mindfulness you're going about? Spirituality?
Most people, when I hear them talking about that, they are thinking about a way to connect to a outside force that is got that spiritual tie, and that can be either through yoga, that can be through meditation, that can be through a number of sources. But to me, mindfulness is trying to, like, we are all several individuals and several parts of our individuality, whether that's emotional, whether that's mental, whether that's spiritual. But to me, mindfulness is a way for us to connect to our spiritual side. And to me, there's a big difference. I don't know whether Dawna would agree with me or Trey, but to me, there is a big difference between spirituality and religion. I am not a big fan, and I'll just put that out there right now. I'm not a big fan of organized religion because I find that too often it kind of pollutes the world of spirituality. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know whether Dawna agrees with me on that or not, but I'll let her speak for herself.
I couldn't agree more.
So, Dawna, what are your thoughts on the connection between religion?
Spirituality versus religion versus mindfulness. There's a lot of different spiritual pathways that are open for interpretation. With religion, what I found when I looked and studied, because I studied a lot of different pathways there, was I always looked for a universal truth in religion, which always came down to positive moral characteristics or virtues. And then religion was, for me, man's interpretation of what a particular person or group thought, and it wasn't open to your own interpretation. But if you only take out the parts of the moral characteristics of it, you have what are called virtues. And that's, I believe, how we should live our life, these positive moral characteristics. Mindfulness, for me, is taking those positive moral characteristics and living them. So it's not necessarily based on religion, and it's not necessarily based on a particular spiritual pathway, because you will find the same virtues, whether you're looking at Hinduism, Buddhism, or whatever Christian faith, religion that might be here in the Western culture. But when you take that commonality between the two, you have a third center balancing point, which is, for me, that mindfulness, which is embracing, embodying, and living those virtues. So when I talk about meditation, it's not that I'm going to go and sit over here for 10 minutes a day and meditate. Meditation is a way of life that I learned from a Zen Buddhist monk. And he taught us a walking meditation, which was you meditate while you're walking. But he took it further and said it wasn't just you're walking while meditating. It was a metaphor for life, and that you need to embrace it and embody it and be meditation. So I went and lived in an ashram for a year to become meditation. And when I left, everything that I do in life is a type of meditation, whether I'm on a podcast, whether I'm washing my dishes, whether I'm out hiking, because it's about being connected in that mindful way through those positive attributes. And it's a state of being. So it's not an activity I go do once a day or twice a day. It's something that you do throughout the entire day because you become it. And that's what I think true mindfulness is.
I can agree with you more than that, because as you were saying it, I was thinking that, and I haven't done enough of that recently, but I know that there was a time frame that I would go out for walks, and I definitely try to stay connected to Mother Nature and observing the birds and the clouds and a lot of the other things that are around. And yes, I live in the city of Durham, North Carolina right now, so it's not like I encounter deers all that often, but if I run across them or a rabbit, I would observe that, as well as people and their pets and everything. But some of my greatest thoughts or my greatest inspirations were while walking and observing what was around me in terms of being connected to Mother Nature and things along that line. So I think that we need to do more of that, because even like a short walk, it might be a walk to the neighborhood store. Just in that quick block walk, I can find a lot of connections that can help me be centered during the course of that day and everything. I just wish that more folks would just have that practice of getting out there and trying to stay tuned to what's going on around the world, because I think that too often we don't pay attention to what the world is telling us. And I think the world has told us a lot of things. One of the stories that I've told friends of mine, and I don't know whether y'all are all, as best I could tell, fairly younger than me and everything, but I remember that when 9/11 happened, I remember that I noticed that a lot of the animals were not as out as they used to be. So like I didn't see as many of the birds out. I didn't see as many of the even small animals like ants and other things out as much as they were before that devastating attack back in 2001. But one of the things that I've always speculated was that the animals were given a message from the forces above. Humans are about to be really stupid. So since they're about to be really stupid, you need to be really smart and jump for cover for a minute until the humans get back to normal. And I think that they got a little bit of a similar kind of message during this pandemic, because I know I've had a number of conversations with people that have noticed how much nature has been rejuvenating while we've been hibernating inside and everything. And a lot of people have been observing what the animals have been doing in the sense of rejuvenating and coming back to a more natural style of living. At least that's what I've picked up from this. But I was wondering if that's something that you also observed, Dawna?
Mm-hmm. It has. And you can see, and part of it is our weather with the animals here, but I do see a lot of places being replenished where they hadn't before, and growth where growth hasn't happened before, and lots of changes with the environment. And it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. I think there's a way for us to live within the context of what's being created, just as you were saying, with the environment and how it's been replenished, because we've been inside a little bit more, but I think there's a way to coexist with it. We do it here with the animals in Montana. We coexist with them. There's also a way to coexist with all of our environment even within the cities.
Yeah, I definitely believe you on that. So, Marco, I was coming back to you. Do you actually make that connection when you're creating your artwork and everything to try to have those kind of connections, whatever those connections are?
It's. I mean, Shauna said it best in the ways of spirituality. It's just that. She gave the best. She gave the right answer there. I don't have anything to add to it. I'm not a very specifically spiritual person. I'm fairly skeptical, to be honest. So I tend to be like in the way of being creative. I just get it. I have a routine, I guess. I just follow my routine and get into the zone, and to do what I have to do. Of course, the past year was a little bit difficult with all the turmoil around the pandemic, and not only that. So depression kicked in. I suffer from depression and anxiety. So depression and anxiety kicked in one too many times. Gladly, I am telling a story that mentions that. So I tapped into what was going with me to tell a story. So in that way, it worked. But as I said, I tend to be very, very skeptical in patterns and whatnot. So I just follow a routine, I guess. And at the end of the day, the result that comes out, it's a result that comes out. However, I do agree with basically what Shauna was saying in the way of the religion and whatnot, because again, I am not only skeptical, I'm actually fairly against organized religion. Right. So the truth that basically what she was coming to as a universal truth, I do kind of see that a little more plausible than any type of credo or anything or coda that would then get you the spiritual means to have a positive life. So I tend to not go there.
No, I definitely agree with you on that, because one of the things I saw many years ago, and this was many years ago, it might have been 10 or 15 years ago, was a special about the world religions. And they actually kind of came up to what Dawna was talking about. They kind of came to the philosophy that if you study the world religions, they basically have the same 6 or 7 principles that are all the same and everything. Is then when mankind puts all the division factors and gets involved in wars and a number of other things, that we break down what those differences are and create the problems. But the core beliefs are the same, which is, respect your parents, respect Mother Nature, respect a number of core beliefs are all the same within most of the world religions. And I think it was like one of those famous ABC anchors. It might have been Peter Jennings or Ted Koppel or one of them, but they were doing this special, and that's basically what they came to the understanding of.
Yeah. Like I mean, one of the things that the United States that the United States prides themselves in the freedom to everything, freedom. But one thing they tend to forget, or at least most of the people that espouse this freedom stuff, is that your freedom ends where the freedom of the next person begins. They tend to forget that part, and it is important to have that in mind. Yeah, you're free to do everything until you're encroaching on somebody else's freedom to exist. So yeah, like, it's good to be spiritual. I guess it's good to be. It's essential to be mindful of your environment and the environment of the others around you. Essentially, yep.
No, I definitely agree with you on that and everything. You have to be essential in terms of having that mindfulness connection and all that. And I know you said you had to bounce as well. The show goes on for a little bit longer, but I can maintain it. I've got some clips and everything that I can show and everything. So if you have to bounce, I definitely understand that. But before you bounce, one of the things I wanted to find out from you was you definitely said that you had some thoughts about, that I said I would come back to that, some thoughts about what was going on in Nigeria. And I'm sure that my guy from the Mindful Closet and everything would be interested to hear some of your thoughts, because you had a number of guests from Nigeria as well as other parts of Africa and the U.S. that have been on the show. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about what's going on in that environment.
They would definitely have a better assertion of what's going on. Essentially, I would say the resumed version is that back in the 70s, I think the government of Nigeria created a special force to protect the government. And that force has been out of bounds. They have been overexerting their power, like a clear case of abuse of power. And recently, or early last year, they killed somebody. It was the first of many. Protests ensued against these forces. They were connected to the police. And in one of the mass protests, there have been people just shooting willy-nilly, and like more than 1,000 people have died so far, if I read that correctly. So it is a case of police brutality mixed in with abuse of power, mixed in with governmental negligence that is called in the international community to comment on it and to criticize the government of Nigeria. There are no problems with the government itself, but specific to what's going on, yeah, that's it. And if I'm not mistaken, this force is called SARS.
Yeah.
So the end SARS was trending on Twitter some time ago as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do remember him mentioning it being called SARS or something along those lines.
Yeah.
As an artist and everything, what are some of the issues that you're hoping that your artwork will tackle in the year 2021? Because like I mentioned earlier, I do think that art is very important for us telling its tales, whether that's the environment which we talked about today, whether that's police violence, whether that's racism, whether that's the economy or a number of other issues. But what is Marco hoping to tackle as issues that he wants to deal with in 2021?
Well, it just depends, because you never know what's going to happen. I was not counting on making a Black Lives Matter painting in the year 2020. But I did because I thought it's something that I needed to contribute to. So it depends on what's going to happen next year. As it is, I am telling a story that is focusing on the disposability of the army machine and the use of drugs in the army machine. So on the onset, that is what I'll be talking about next year, because that's what the book that I'm writing, that I wrote, that I'm painting is about. However, whatever comes to the fore that needs to be addressed, I will try to do my best to convey a message about it, because I said it is. I don't do it often. Most of the time, I am shouting by the way of social media about the issues at hand, but whenever I can contribute a minor thing, a minor painting, minor drawing, or anything about something about somebody that is being oppressed, so some situation that should not be as it is, I do. I mean, I guess as the year is coming about and vaccinations are finally about to kick in and whatnot, and unfortunately there's a new strand of the virus developing, so that may or may not affect people. I would call onto attention, as it is right now, I would call onto attention the fact that the essential workers are being neglected. They're being seriously abused. They're not being compensated at all. They're being neglected, and they are also dying. People tend to regard issues when they're finally hitting them in the face. Like the people that are calling the virus a hoax, it only changes when they're affected. So I would hope that enough people have been affected that the minds are finally changing, that the people are being more mindful about the things that they have to do to protect themselves and then protect the others around. So yeah, I mean, if it comes to pass that I do a piece about it, yeah, I probably will. But it's just a minor. It's a huge thing, but it's just something that immediately comes to mind as something that is, I'm being redundant now, but something that is immediate, is prescient, and people need to address.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What advice would you give to somebody that is wanting to be an artist at this day and time that we're living in and everything, whether that's a young person or whether that's somebody in your age range? Or I even know that sometimes people can become artists late in life. Like I said, my dad is a incredibly well-known local photographer. Started doing photography when he was probably in his 50s or something like that in terms of like it being a career. So definitely, what advice would you give to folks that are trying to do work in the art space and want to be it?
It's never too late, and with the advent of the internet, you have the tools to do. I mean, artistic wise, you have the tools to learn, even for free. I mean, YouTube is there. There's courses for free everywhere. You can decide what is it that you want to invest in. Invest your time into it. Essentially, what I would say, because I've been asked, even at convention, I've been asked, what's the secret? The secret is perseverance. You have to slot time in your life to dedicate yourself to something that you want to pursue. Dedicate yourself to that. Learn what is it that you need to learn. Do trials. Do many mistakes. Keep doing mistakes, and as you're doing them, you're learning, and that's it. And that, of course, that is too much of a general answer, but it just is what it is. If you want to get into the arts, if you want to get into anything right now, there are libraries worth of knowledge that you can learn just using the internet. The only thing you need to have is time, dedication, and perseverance. Make mistakes, learn from your mistakes, and go do your stuff.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like I asked Dawna earlier before you leave and everything, what advice would you give to people and what words of encouragement? That's one of the things I try to do with all my guests on all my different shows, whether it's the streaming podcast, which is what this is, or whether it's one of the, well, I only do one audio one, but whether it's the audio one or one of these 3 streaming ones or some of the ones that I appear on, I always ask my guests their words of positivity and words of encouragement that they would like to give to people as we head into 2021. So what words of encouragement would you give to the world out there? And know it's a big globe, but any words that you would like to share with the world?
I mean, it's to be honest, I understand that it is hard. It is hard to find positivity in what's happening with the world right now. Yes, you can look at the United States as the general mess that it is, right? The general mess, and be dissuaded. And even the countries that are not in that general mess, the pandemic brought a lot of negativity in. And there's a lot of reasons to be depressed. There is student loans. There is the housing crisis everywhere in the world. There is inflation that is just increasing. The environment is not getting better. Like, again, it's hard to find things to be positive about, but doing your part in minor little victories in your day and in the way that you feel that it will affect the others around you is important. Doing a minor thing. If you have done something positive for yourself, for your pet, for your loved ones, that is already something that you can be happy about, that you can be content with, that you're making somebody happy. you're making somebody content. You're making somebody's day better than they were before you have intervened. That is already something to be positive about. Because if you want to affect change even more, be loud online. Talk to your governmental people. Run for government. All those things. You will be affecting change directly. I mean, you would say that 4 years ago, a waitress ran for a position in Congress, and nowadays she's one of the most recognized and most trusted people in the planet. And for as much as people say, "Oh, it was just a waitress," she was not just a waitress. She was somebody with a serious background in activism, and she had a pedigree in studies as well. But it doesn't mean that just because this person had this pedigree, now you cannot do it. No, you can do it. Anybody can. So at the end of the day, you can do the minor things to affect change to your day, to somebody else's day, or you can aspire to do even greater things, and you can be sure that you will affect somebody.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely agree with you that they can do things to affect change. Sometimes it's even the small things, because I know that sometimes we're oftentimes so concentrated on the big offices, whether that's the president of a country, the Congress, or a number of those other things. But a lot of times we don't pay attention to the smaller offices, whether that be your mayor, your city council, your aldermen, or a number of other things. And they can also oftentimes make a change in our local lives, and we don't pay attention to those. So we have to find ways to engage even on the local activism level. And I agree that she was definitely doing activism even before she became a congresswoman and everything. Yeah. The same can be said of President Obama, because President Obama was an activist in Chicago and a number of other places before he got into the presidential office. For those that are listening and are wanting to see more of your artwork and things along that line, is there a website where they can go and see your work and where they can actually engage your work and actually find it? I do know that you're involved in that comic book space that you talked about, but is there like a specific website or a specific way that folks can reach you to see your work?
To be honest, I am very easy to find because, as I said, I have a fairly good pedigree in the industry. So if you Google my name, Marco Rudy, everything that you'll find is it starts with my Facebook and Twitter. You will find Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my litany of websites that I've posted my artwork in. All of them. It's just that the websites that I posted my artwork in, I tend to vary the names. So, and they are all weird names with Mozambican references. So it's kind of hard to like spell it. But at the end of the day, if you Google my name, Marco Rudy, R-U-D-Y, you will find me like everywhere. So everything is there. Even my Patreon is it.
Sounds great.
The first thing that you find. It's like literally the first thing that you find.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll do that and they'll see all of those. What do you think is the most unique political thing that they will see when they do that, Google it, and they see that? Because you did say that a lot of them have unique thoughts and unique addresses. So what do you think is the most unique one that you put out there?
People will just flat out call me a lefty tree hugger. Like, that's it. So if you're against lefty tree huggers with progressive thoughts and that are always shouting about progressive issues, if you don't mind that, welcome to the club. If you do, you can pass through. So that's about it. I am very loud about that. Of course, it's the holiday seasons now, so I tend to not be as much vocal, but most of the time I am there talking about. If I'm not talking about my Portuguese club failing at what they have to do, I'm talking about serious issues or making fun about comic book nerd stuff.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with comic book nerd stuff. Actually,
I love it.
One of the things I regretted that I did not get to go to in the summer or fall this year is there are a number of cosplay kind of festivals and comic book festivals that happen here in the Triangle. Unfortunately, if they happen virtually, because I used to go by and just enjoy watching the people coming in those various cartoon characters, because they would come in the various characters that they admired and things along those lines. So it was always a true treat just watching them here in this area.
It's great. It's great. People finally getting into their alter egos. They're living their lives as they wish they wanted to. It's fun.
Yep, definitely. And they do that on a regular basis. And like you said, I actually had one of my guests on this show before that was very much involved in the cosplay world. And I think that if I remember correctly, she lived somewhere out toward the West Coast, like it wasn't Montana or Colorado, but it was somewhere in that general area. And definitely they were totally into that cosplay kind of life. And they definitely enjoyed that kind of space and all of that. So I agree with you that a lot of times folks need that alter ego type of space.
Yeah.
And all of that. Do you ever find, even in your, I was going to bring it up to all of y'all when y'all are on and everything, but do you ever find that when you put out your thoughts that you sometimes are so passionate about your thoughts that you have alienated some of your friends and acquaintances and you even had to trim off your list and things along that line? Because I know that I've talked to a good friend of mine, and he talked about even some of the people, whether it's about the mask or whether in the past it was about gay rights issues or the bathroom bills that happened in North Carolina, that there were times that he had to trim his friendship list based on the fact that he's very much convicted in his convictions. And I think that you should be having those deep convictions, but those other people didn't necessarily want to see it his way.
I think that it's important to have an open mind. I think it's an important thing to listen to different points of view. However, if people are there to troll, they're out. If different points of view is it's important for people to live, and somebody says, I'd like the freedom for people to die, I think that person is an idiot. I will call them out.
Right.
So as I said, I have lost people in social media because I am vocal. And if people tend to have selfish, self-righteous, and just idiot commentary to bring to the conversation, as I said, I welcome different points of view. If they even constructive critique, if it's constructive critique, if the idea of constructive critique is, oh no, the gays have to die, I will call you an expletive and invite you to go away, because no, they don't have to. So that's just it. I remember my mother some time ago, because my folks are religious, they are Catholic, and I am not. In fact, every now and then I am talking very much against organized religion, all types of organized religion, including the Vatican, the Catholic Church, and whatnot. And I called them out. So my mom commented to me, asking me to tone it down a little bit because they have friends that wouldn't like to see it. I'm like, dude, I disagree with that. My point is that okay, I'm not going to be insulting people that follow that. I think it's a little demeaning to just flat out call them names and whatnot. I will, however, address the fact that I think that is a kind of an enterprise that is conning people. That's just it. And I will mention it many times over. If that is something that is in disagreement with people that follow me on social media, what I tend to do is every now and then I post to new people like, this is me, this is what I trust, this is what I value, and if you have something against it, we can talk about it. If you're talking about it is to call names, not bring anything to the conversation, I will kind of invite you to not add me. There's no need for you to follow me. I will not bring anything to your life, so there's just no point.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You would actually love something that my dad did one time and everything. But I work at a cultural arts center, and that cultural arts center is actually at a converted church. And the church has actually since moved away from where they were meeting, which is the cultural arts center that I am involved with. It's called the Haiti Heritage Center, and it does have some connections in the naming to the country of Haiti and a number of other things like that. But it's a Black African-American cultural arts center. But my dad knew that there were different churches meeting there, and he came to drop off something like some food or maybe just drop off some information to me and everything. But he knew that was going on, the church was going on, And while he was having these church people come up to him, invited him to come into the service, saying how great I was as an individual and everything, he jokingly told one of them that he was the opposite of what church people believe in and everything. So he let them know that he was actually the opposite of that kind of person. Not that he actually even believes that about himself. He just wanted to mess with their heads. So he was having a little bit of fun with them by letting them know that he didn't feel like being engaging with them as they were trying to bring him into the church fold.
Well, like it's funny again. I really will have to leave soon, which is I apologize because I'd love to continue this, but like I would give you an example of just how silly these things can be. The United States allows organized religion to work in any type of religion. So if you can form your cult and justify your cult, your religion, whatnot, you're free of taxes. So I love that in a lot of progressive issues, you will see the Catholic Church against it and the Satanic Church for it.
Right.
Okay? I would not specifically to the Catholic Church, but a lot of different strands of it in the United States are against Planned Parenthood, and you would see, like if you just do a little research and see all the good that Planned Parenthood does and did, for not specific to abortion, like all the good that they do for cancer research, and you would see that just to spite the Satanic Church decided to invest in Planned Parenthood to help them to spread their message. And I'm like really, when when you're seeing that these strands of the Catholic Church are against helping people, and the other church, which is the church of the enemy, are all about helping people. Who is the enemy here? So it's very hypocritical. At the end of the day, it's just everything is just very hypocritical. But if anybody wants to know all of my thoughts about that, just follow me on social media.
Sounds great, and definitely, I know you said you had to bounce and all that, and I definitely can respect that. And like I said, I do have a couple of videos that I can play to maintain the last 15 or 20 minutes that I've got to go and everything. But you've been a great guest, as were the other folks on the show. So do know, and I will let them know by email and everything, that you're always welcome to come back and share your viewpoints. I definitely believe in connecting with people, and I found that both you, Marco, as well as Dawna and Trey, are part of my new friendship circle. I'm oftentimes making new friends throughout this social media. So definitely do know that you are always welcome to come back and share your artwork, share your thoughts, or anytime that you're available, you are always welcome to come back here and use this as one of your platforms, because I definitely have a great deal of respect for you. Like I said, even when you were speaking at that conference, I thought it was an amazing conference, and I thought that you were one of the great speakers, and I've invited some others to come on the platform here as well. So definitely we hope that you will keep this invitation as one that you're always welcome to come back anytime that you want to.
Thank you so very much. Thanks for having me. I'll be glad to come in again.
Sounds great. So as you get ready to leave and everything, if you have any final thoughts that you want to share with people before I bring up the video to kind of like let the show go into its swan song part of this episode, but if you got any final thoughts that you just want to share in general, I'll let you have the final word before I bring my final word at the absolute end of the show.
Like mostly to people going through some bad times into this festive time. As someone that struggles with, as I said, with depression and anxiety, and it's just anyway, it sucks. It just sucks. So I would say that for those people, it gets better. It always gets better if you can count on the help of the people around you, of your social circles, and trying to find mechanisms to deal with the negativity around. It helps. So it always gets better. It's good. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Marco. Like I said, I'm going to let you go ahead and I'm going to bring up one of the music things, but do know that I will be reaching back out to you. And I will definitely also try to, before getting off the show, pull up some of your artwork so that folks can see a little bit of it as well. But if not, I'll definitely be showing it on an upcoming edition. And do know that you're always, as I said, welcome to come back in the near future.
All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks again.
No problem.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. So that was Marco. And like I said, Marco's got a lot of very positive things going on in his world. And of course, we've had some great conversations and all of that. As I just told him, I'm going to bring up some music and let y'all check out a little bit of music from some great musicians and all of that. So I think that I'll bring up a little bit of blues music because y'all know I love blues music. And of course, this is the Mullings music and memory. So I think I'm going to bring up one of my favorites, that being Albert King. So we're going to bring up a little bit of Albert King and let you hear a little bit of what this particular song is all about and all of that. So I think we're going to do Born Under a Bad Sign because sometimes folks just feel like they're born under a bad sign and all of that. So I'm going to give you all a little dose of Born Under a Bad Sign, and then we'll come back with some more great conversation in just a matter of a minute or so, things along that line. So right now we're going to bring up Born Under a Bad Sign, and I'll let y'all check out a little bit of this great music. So if y'all will hold on a second, I'm going to try to get this running and everything so y'all can check out Born Under a Bad Sign. So if y'all will hold on just 1 second, we're going to have that going on and all of that. So hold on, and we're going to bring up Born Under a Bad Sign. Like I said, this is truly great music, and I think that y'all are in for a definite enjoyable time as we bring up this great song and all of that. So if y'all hold on just 1 second, we're going to bring up Born Under a Bad Sign.
There's another one here. I want you to listen to it. It's one of them old ones. Stevie, I want you to pick up on these things. I know you can do it. See, you're qualified to do it. I want you to go ahead on, and the most important thing, the better you get, the harder you work. You can't say, well, I got it made, I got enough. Don't do that.
Oh, well.
No, that's a promise.
That's a promise.
You're going to be good than what you are. You're already pretty good. You're pretty good. But you're going to be better.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. I'm going to be watching you and praying for you and be right there with that board. This is called Don't Lie to Me. Here, G. 1, 2, 3, play. I just can't stand evil-hearted woman and a lying man. Don't you lie to me. Now don't you lie to me, because it make me mad, evil as a man can be. Well, you told me that you loved me long time ago. The fella that you got, you don't want him no more. Don't you lie to me. Now don't you lie to me, because it make me mad. I get evil as a man can be. Told me that you love me long time ago. The fella that you have, you don't want him no more. Don't you lie to me. Because it makes me mad. I get evil as a man can be. Don't you lie to me. Don't you lie to me. No, don't lie to me. Now don't you lie to me. Because it makes me mad. I get evil as a man can be. Play this man out of tune.
Uh-oh.
All right, folks, like I was saying, that was a little bit of Albert King and Stevie Ray Vaughan, some great sounds that they were providing us and all of that. So definitely appreciate that great music that was coming your way. And speaking of great things that come your way, don't forget that there are all kinds of amazing shows that are happening right here on IBMTV.tv. So I want to let y'all check out a little bit of the great programming that happens here on a regular basis. And of course, we've got an award show that I understand is going to be coming up in the very near future as well. So I'm hoping to learn more about that. I believe it's coming up on the 30th. So definitely hoping that folks will be checking that award show out and learning more about who might be getting awards, who might not be getting awards, and what those awards are. Because apparently there's a number of awards that will be given out on the 30th of this month. So that's just going to be in a matter of a few days and all of that. So definitely looking forward to hearing more about these amazing awards that are about to come our way, and what folks can learn about these awards and what these awards will entail. So I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm looking forward to finding out more about these awards. And who knows, maybe my friend Zach or myself or even Jacoby might walk away with an award, but we'll just have to find out. You heard me earlier talking about Mind Closet, that being the show that my good friend Brother Mike does, and we were talking about Nigeria. So let's check out a little bit about what Mind Closet is all about. That comes your way on Friday mornings. And then there's podcasters.
My name's Brandon. I'm a world traveler, foodie, and YouTuber. Together, you and I will find the best travel hacks, tips, and best places to explore. Join me as we find new adventures together, live only on IBM.tv.
By the way, it's my understanding that they have actually just passed in the House a bill to give $2,000 versus $600, and now that's got to go to the fine folks in the Senate as well. So I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm hoping that this actually gets through and all of that. But no telling what those folks in the Senate might do and things along those lines, and who knows when that $600 will come as well. So that is something that I just recently learned was passed, and hopefully that will be good news for those that are waiting for it and all of that. I did promise folks that I would be showing some of Marco's work, so I'm getting ready to bring up one of his websites so that folks can take a look at what his pictures look like and all of that. Like he said, he has done work for Marvel and all of that, so I'm going to bring up some of his images that folks can check out some of Marco's work. So this is the comic that we were talking to earlier, and this is some of the work that he has had the pleasure of doing. So like I said, I did say I would bring that up so that folks could see a little bit of his work and what he is all about. So as you can tell, he is definitely a well-known person that has done a number of amazing works, including things about the Civil War and a number of other things. So as you can see, he has definitely got his own series and is definitely very well connected to the world of Marvel and a number of other places also. So this is a little bit of his work that y'all can see that he has definitely been involved in the Marvel space as well as a number of other spaces also. So this is just a little bit of his work and all of that. So definitely as folks are checking it out, they can see that he is definitely a well-known artist here in this area and has done some amazing work and all of that. So definitely you can see that he's got some things that are featured and all of that. So definitely I was just letting folks check out a little bit of stuff that was available on his page or one of his pages if you look him up and all of that. So he is definitely involved in the comic space and all of that. So definitely was just sharing a little bit of his work and everything that he is involved with. So if y'all hold on, I'll try to bring up some more of his stuff as well and so that y'all check out even more of his work and what he's all about. But he has definitely been a well-known artist in this area and is a professional comic book artist who has done a number of works and all of that. So definitely, like I said, he's originally from Mozambique, so we'll let you check out even more of his work. As you can see, this is another one of his pages and all of that. So definitely that is some more of the work that is involved in Marco if you look him up and all of that. So you can see that he is a very well-known comic in the area. So just wanted y'all to check out a little bit of his artwork and what he is all about. So definitely I might even do a close-up of one of his artworks and let you get a better view of all of that. So like I said, this is just some of the work that he has been involved with and all of that. So you can tell he's definitely got some work and definitely been involved in a number of things and all of that. So just sharing you some of the work that he has been featured on, and you can see a little bit of his work and definitely learn more about Marco the comic and what he is involved in. So as you can tell, he is definitely a well-connected comic book artist, and definitely was glad to have him on our show to share a little bit of his work and what he is all about. So definitely folks can check it out, and you can go to cadencecomics.art. That's one of the places. But as he said, if you type in his name, you will find his artwork all over the internet, and you can see a little bit more of what he is involved in and how his artwork has been doing and all of that. So definitely just sharing you a little bit of Marco's work. Like I said, we were very privileged to have him as one of our guests on our show earlier this afternoon. So definitely was glad to have him as one of our amazing guests and all of that. So definitely glad he was able to join us and share his amazing artwork that he has been involved with and all of that. So here's the one from GameSpot, and that's what show a little bit more of Marco's work, and that was Marco Rudy, I should say, and this is more of his work that you can see as well. So as you can tell, as he said, you can find him all over the website in a number of different ways and all of that. So if you look for him, you can definitely find that he is a well-credited artist here in the world and all of that, and has done some amazing artwork. So I was definitely glad to have him be featured and show his love of the art and his love and passion for a number of other things as well. So definitely was glad to have him on the show and glad to have him engaged in a conversation with us. So like I said, that's a little bit about Marco Rudy and what he is all about. So definitely was glad to have him on the show, and he was a truly amazing guest. But like I say, we also have some amazing shows that happen here on this network. And by the way, the website is ibmtv.tv. So definitely, as you're seeing the website on some of these commercials, do remember that the actual website is ibmtv.tv. So keep that in mind as you are thinking about engaging in some of these great shows that we have here on a regular basis. By the way, don't forget Startup Wednesday, where I'm oftentimes engaged in conversation, takes place on Wednesday. So 2 days from now will be Startup Wednesday. And like I said, there's all kinds of great things happening, and that was actually Test Stars that I was showing, and that, of course, is a great program that airs right here, so I need to get back to that so we can see more of that, as well as get into some words from one of our sponsors. Now, it is my understanding that we're going to have 2 New Year's Eve celebrations here on IBMTV.tv. I understand that Brandon, who is our Best of Travel guy, is going to be doing one, and he's asked me to pop in on that one. So I am planning to attend that one on 2 days from now. And then it is also my understanding that Jeff Eachin, who has also asked me to make an appearance, will be doing one as well. So we've got 2 events going on, and one of those will be more of an East Coast kind of time, since Brandon is down there in Florida, and the other one will be more of a West Coast kind of flavor, since there is no doubt that Jeff is over there in that West Coast area, around Washington and all of that, the state of Washington, and that is. So definitely should be some great parties going on, and I'm looking forward to popping in on both of those amazing events and all of that. So definitely keep that in mind, that is something that is going to be going on in the very near future. So I know a lot of folks will be excited about that and looking forward to that event. And like I said earlier, don't forget that on the 30th, we've got an award show coming your way. So in 2 days, this will be taking place. So yes, we're going to have a broadcast awards going on at 9 a.m. on the day after tomorrow. So that is something that is going on. We've got these awards coming up, and I know a lot of folks will be interested to find out about these awards and to find out what the results of the awards are and all of that. So that is some of the things that are going on here on IBMTV.tv. So I hope that y'all will keep your radios and computers and whatever other means of listening to and watching things y'all are dealing with in place, so that y'all can find out about the amazing things that are happening here on this network. Of course, it can't be done without the support of a sponsor. So let's see what the Dollar Store is talking about. And by the way, don't forget, they changed their name of the Dollar Store as well.
Hi, my name is Lynn Shepard. Our family owns an online dollar store, family.dollarstore.com. We have over 4,300 items on our site, quality items, and a lot less expensive than you might find wherever you're shopping, including on Amazon. We deliver for free if you spend $25 or more. And we also have a gift token program. Now, gift tokens are just like gift cards that you would get to shop at CVS, Target, Macy's, or a lot of other stores. And when you sign up to become a customer, you immediately get $5 worth of gift tokens to be able to use before you even make your very first purchase. So we encourage you to sign up to become a customer. We are here because we are supporting a not-for-profit, Money Masters PBS. Money Masters PBS owns IBM TV. Now, the mission of Money Masters PBS is to narrow the gap between poverty and financial sustainability.
Earlier, you heard me mention Brandon Scott and his New Year's Eve celebration, as well as Jeff Eachin and his. Well, Brandon Scott, in addition to being the best of travel guy, has also got a store of his own. That's right. So if you go to Brandon Scott's website and check out what he's got going on, and of course you can find that by going to his show or going and checking out his YouTube or a number of other things, you will see that he's got items for sale, including some items of things that are representing me and the shows that I do. So definitely go on over there and buy a cup or I think there's a hoodie that's got one of the shows on it, as well as a number of other items. So go on over there and check out the IBM.TV store, which has also got an IBM.TV cup, or an IBM TV, I should say, cup, and all of that. So definitely go on over there and get that cup. Get a couple of the cups that I am selling, as well as the hoodie or a number of other items. It is getting a little on the cool side. So we would love for you to grab some items and put some money into the pocket that way as well. So definitely, if you get a chance, go on over there and check that out. That is something that you can do on a regular basis. So definitely get on over there and do that, because that is something that can support us in the endeavors that we are doing. And don't forget to subscribe to the IBMTV.TV website. So if you go to the YouTube website and you click on this banner that is rolling across the screen and everything, you can actually subscribe to the channel there as well. And of course, I would love it if y'all would join my site as well. So definitely get on over there and check out my Instagram and my Twitter sites so that you can definitely go ahead and join there as well. So definitely looking forward to folks popping on over there and following me and a number of the other things that I am involved in. Don't forget that in just a matter of a few minutes, I'm going to be going on into the audio world, leaving the streaming podcast world and heading into the audio world with my audio show that I do with my good buddy, Dean Geronimo. We've got some folks that will be calling in. I think they're mostly musicians and artists and people along that line. But looking forward to that conversation will be taking place. And that website is blogtalkradio.com/squared807. So that's blogtalkradio.com/squared807. So hoping that many of you will go on over there and check that out in just a matter of a few minutes and all of that, so that you can hear some more great dialogue about great things that are going on in the community as we try to encourage folks that are in the creative space, in the space around entrepreneurs, in the space around activism, and a number of other things as well. So that show will be coming your way between the hours of 7 and 9. So definitely keep that in mind on Monday evenings, that you can go to blogtalkradio.com/squared807 and learn about some more great conversations that me and Dean are about to have in just a matter of a minute or two. So that being said, I'm here to wrap up this particular edition of Mullings and Music and Memories. I might give y'all a couple of more ads about shows and things that are going on, but pretty much it's about time for us to wrap this bad boy on up and get this airplane on out of here. But we do love having our ambassador tell us what we should be doing in the sense of hand washing and all of the rest of those things. So we'll bring up the ambassador, then get this plane on out of here. So I hope that y'all enjoyed some great conversation, as on the first show, the radio show with Marc Lee, we had Nubian Red on, and we had some other great guests on that show, including my buddy Frazier from Scotland. So we definitely had some amazing conversations on that show, and we also had some other guests that were on as well. So definitely some great conversations there. And then earlier today, here we had Marco Rudy and we had Dawna. So we've had some great conversations on both shows with great guests. So definitely, if you get a chance, go back and check them out. But right now, let's check out what the ambassadors got to say.
हैंड होकर और ऐसे अपने खांसी जब आएगी तो ऐसे करेंगे अथू अथू और कोरोना वायरस को धन्यवाद हमारा म्यूजिक सुनने का.
And like I said, here's this airplane getting us on out of here. Well, I'll see you all on Wednesday with the online dinner party. And you know, we'll have some more amazing guests at that time. Matter of fact, I believe we're going to have some folks connected to the liquor industry on that particular day. So I'm looking forward to some more great conversations. But right now, get ready to head on over to the audio world.